I have a property development company called Newman Rose. That's myself, Newman being my last name, Rose, referring to my business partner, Rosie Cassidy. So if anyone's seen sort of any of my content on socials, you'll see I do a lot with her. So our property development company right now, our main focus is luxury residential schemes. So we've just completed recently this year on a project to build 17 units, so 17 detached houses in Cambridgeshire. I'm very fortunate that I've grown up in an entrepreneurial family. My dad's an entrepreneur, owns an estate agency business. And when people hear that, they think, oh, that's how you got into property. But the reality is, sort of, even though I grew up in that world, I really knew nothing about property until I was sort of 17, 18, when I was in sixth form, decided I didn't want to go to university and started looking at other options. But up to that point, I'd always been interested in business. I was always picking up business books that my dad had left around the house, attending seminars, attending events. And whether being an entrepreneur is something you're born with or it's
something that comes with you.
If it's nature versus nurture, who knows? We could debate about it till, all day long. But I'm very fortunate that I had that sort of entrepreneurial flair in the family. I'd already had a couple of sort of e-commerce businesses, events businesses that didn't really take off, but they just taught me so much about business. And realized, well, if I am gonna pursue maybe a degree or something, I'd want it to be business related. But at that point, it didn't quite make sense to me, or there was no attraction for me to go learn at university, something I feel I could have learned somewhere else, more so like specialist skill sets, because I kind of knew at that point I wanted to get into property. I was interested in property. I'd tried a couple other things. I'd looked at again, e-commerce, sort of building a brand that way. I'd looked at, other things sort of in the marketing space, like trading, stock shares, all these things people like,
routes so
many different routes. But for me, property seemed like the one I was most excited about. And when I was 17, I attended like my first property investing seminar at some hotel function room in London at the Cumberland Hotel, which is now the Hard Rock Hotel. And the guy teaching it, who I guess was, I don't like to use the word sort of mentor, but the first person I really learned property from, was sort of talking through all these different strategies. And it suddenly occurred to me that, okay, this is 100% what I want to do. And I also realized how little I knew. Went through sort of a few seminars, trainings like that. Didn't really have a huge amount of cash to my name at that point, so I couldn't invest too much money in education. So a lot of the time I just learned the hard way. I just was going out trying to find deals. I began working as an estate agent as well. We advertise, market their home, negotiate, find the buyers, put the deal together, get it through to completion. That seller pays our fee as an estate agent, whether that's 1.5%, 2%, 2.5%. And then me as the agent operating under this main brand would then get paid a commission on that fee. So the income earning potential is much higher, again, if you're good. And that really appealed to me because it's a business where I knew I could be paid what I was worth to an extent. The harder I worked, the better I became, the more money I'd make. And one thing I learned early on, and something Robert Kiyosaki talks about in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is one of the first books I read, is that trading your time for money isn't scalable. So in order to increase your income, you want to be doing something where you're paid for your value or paid for your skills or something like that. So I started working as an estate agent, saving up as much cash as I could while trying to find some property deals to get into. The first deal I ended up doing when I was 18 years old, just turning 19, which was a 2-bedroom terraced house in Coventry. I was doing sort of a lot of direct to vendor marketing, which is where you sort of put leaflets through doors and advertise the fact you're looking for properties. And, came across this property and it was probably worth, I don't know what it would have been worth in the current condition because it was a tip, but I paid £85,000 for it, spent 20 on it. Sold it for 131. So it was like £26,000 profit. If you find a good deal and the numbers stack and a lot has to go wrong for you to lose money, then be as resourceful as you can. So to make that profit at that age on my first deal just really solidified the fact, this is what I want to do. One of the biggest mistakes I made was I completed on the purchase. I remember picking up the keys from the agent, going to the property, and I hadn't organized any contractors to come in. Hadn't even spoken to any of them.
Yeah.
And so I got on the phone that night. I was like, right, I want to get a quote for plastering. I want to get someone to come in for the electrics.
Yeah.
And quickly realized that all the good contractors were like, I can do it, but in 6 weeks time, because I'm busy until then. So actually the property sat empty for the first 6 weeks of me doing it. And people are going to think, oh, why didn't you just do it yourself? And I was also working, full time, 6 days a week from, 10, 12 hours a day. And my time was best spent there. I'm better off making my money there and then paying for the right teams. That's the best way to leverage my time. But yeah, after doing a few property deals like that, I had a sort of power team of people I could trust, call on, go in and get the job done. But that was one of the biggest learning curves for me, was just finding the right contractors, understanding who to come in when, because it's a little bit of a circus, because you've got to have labourers come in to strip the walls, and then immediately after that you've got to have the sparkies, the plumbers do their first fix, the plasterers come in, the window fitters come in, then you've got the second fix, and there is a process to it, and trying to coordinate all of that, even find that deal took a long time as well. So one thing I've realised with land developments is everything takes so much longer. Officially this year, which was our project in a village called Isleham in Cambridgeshire. But even that one took best part of 12 months just to get it through the legal process and sort of the planning process as well. But yeah, this is our first project officially under Newman Rose. When I worked as an agent, I brokered a few land deals. I'd observed from a distance my business partner Rosie doing a lot of land deals. Her family background is in development. She's one of the smartest, not just females, but people I know in the whole of the UK, especially at that age when it comes to land development. Yeah. I'm sure one thing we'll talk about in a second is our education company on the property development side. And we've got students in that education business that have been in property and specifically development for 25, 30 years. And they are still blown away and gobsmacked by the level of knowledge that Rosie has at 24 years old. So very, very fortunate to have her as a business partner. We went to school together. We were actually probably maybe there was only 4 or 5 people in our year at school that chose not to go to university. Okay, yeah. She was one of the 5, and she kind of saw, we talked about me getting into property in my kind of final year at sixth form. She was telling me about her family business, and then we just stayed in touch, and it got to the point in 2020 where she decided she'd done a lot of things. She'd worked as a land agent, was incredibly successful doing that. In 2020 stars aligned where she decided she wanted to step away from the family business. Yep. I wanted to really jump in with both feet into developments. We've realized we worked really well together. We both bring so much to the table in different areas, and that's how that partnership. I then, started focusing on the upper quarter of the market. So when I was operating in Warwickshire in the Midlands, that was sort of £500,000 plus. And then I moved down to North London because I thought I wouldn't even go after sort of higher house prices, moved to North London. Yeah. But the timing was just, this is probably me making excuses, but the timing was not great. The market at the time in North London back then had just dipped a little bit. I thought I kind of maxed out where I was operating in Warwickshire in the Midlands. Yeah. I liked the London lifestyle as well. I started to make connections in London and realized that the circle of people there and the conversations, that's kind of, I was just more on that wavelength. Yeah. And I found it just, the people there inspiring. I found it an inspiring city, and I wanted a new challenge. And so I moved to North London, sort of the Enfield, Cockfosters, so like proper North London. And where probably the average house price I was working with was between 1.75 to 2.25 million. Yeah. But the market had taken a hit at that point, and there was a big discrepancy between sellers' expectations of the price they wanted to achieve when they sold the property versus what sold for. Yeah, versus what buyers were prepared to pay. Yeah. And there was just too big of a gap to sort of make a lot of transactions work. When I left London for the first time, I definitely felt a little bit defeated. And I'm one of these people, and I genuinely believe you have to take 100% responsibility for your results. As much as I could blame the market and say, what buyers wanted to pay for property and what sellers wanted to sell property for, we were just too out of line. I can make 1,000,001 excuses. The reality is, I've got to take responsibility for the fact that I just couldn't get the results. I did feel a little bit defeated, but then it also gave me this drive that the comeback is bigger than the setback.
Yeah.
And as cliche as that is, that's the energy I had, and started to build sort of the education business I've got now with my business partner Rosie, formalize our development business as well. And got to the point where that business was like, okay, I'm pretty confident. We've got proof of concept now. We're doing really well. We're in lockdown at that point, which was a blessing in disguise, really, because actually, from a business perspective, a lot of people actually had probably more disposable income. Our business was doing really good. So I moved back down to London. And the reason for that is I just believe environment is everything, right? Environment shapes how you think, how you behave, your discipline. And I wanted to be in an environment that inspires me, where I wake up every day, I'm excited, I want to work. An environment that forces me to think bigger.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people make the mistake of just wanting to be a big fish in a small pond. And as good as that is for your ego, it's probably not great for longer term growth. I think just what Dubai has done alone in the last 20 or so years is incredible. And it's just a reminder of the power of thinking big.
Yeah.
What the rulers of this country decided to do 20 years ago when they had this vision. I'm so invested in the UK right now, and I try not to become sort of a fool for sort of shiny object syndrome, in the sense that as much as it's really appealing to be here, I'm so invested in the UK and I want to follow through with that plan.
Yeah.
Of course, at some point we'll take things international, but with UK, I'm a big fan of, I say I'm a big fan, I love it and hate it, but sort of the planning system and the way things work. I think out here, to get into developments, I'm not 100% sure, and it's a lack of knowledge really, 100% sure on what the market's like out here in terms of, is there an oversupply with the amount that they're building, the amount of space that they've got to build, and they are just building non-stop? Are they going to end up supplying too much stock to the market? I'm big on my routines and discipline and sort of set boundaries for myself. But it's probably not so much that I've worked stupidly hard and I've rushed and been racing against time. It's just I've been very, very lucky that early on I decided, or I figured out what I wanted to do. Yeah. And I just went all in on that, and I was constantly thinking, how can I get to the next level? The first one in Cambridge, and then one further up north. Again, I can't disclose exactly where it is. And then we've got 5 sites we're taking through planning over the next 12 to 18 months in the Midlands, which will be absolutely incredible properties. And we're designing that completely from scratch, which is super exciting. We've got some of the best experts in various industries across the world, across the UK, partnered with us that can help our students as well. And really, we just boiled it down to kind of first principles when we started designing the product. It's how can we build something that actually gets results? Because we could be amazing marketers. We could do what these dropshipping guys do and rent some supercars and do the whole lifestyle marketing thing. But we realized the number one way for us to sort of market and grow our education business is build a world-class product that actually delivers a world-class service and gets real actionable results. And then also we actually build a hyper successful property development business ourselves, which is what we're doing.